On November 21st, 2025, something very surprising happened in American politics. People all over the country and the world were shocked by what they saw. President Donald Trump, a leader known for his strong views, met with New York City Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani. Mamdani is a Democrat with very different political ideas from the president. Many saw them as complete opposites in how they think about governing. This important meeting took place in the famous Oval Office, a symbol of power in the White House. Before this day, many believed the meeting would be tense. People expected strong words, disagreements, or even a public confrontation between the two leaders. But the actual event was quite different. President Trump and Mayor-elect Mamdani showed a surprising warmth towards each other. They spoke positively after their private discussion. They even found areas where they agreed, such as helping people with affordable housing and lowering the cost of living in cities. This unexpected friendly feeling was a big surprise to everyone watching. This sudden shift in their relationship raised many important questions. Did President Trump and Mayor-elect Mamdani truly begin a friendship during their meeting? Or was their warm behavior just a planned act, a political theater meant for public viewing? Was it a strategic move to serve their own political goals instead of a real personal connection? This book will look closely at this central question and try to find answers. To understand how this meeting happened, we need to go back in time. Before November 21st, President Trump and Mayor-elect Mamdani were strong political enemies. They had often criticized each other very harshly in public. Trump had used strong language against Mamdani during the mayoral election. Mamdani, in turn, had openly challenged the president's policies. Their journey from this deep hostility to a handshake in the Oval Office is remarkable. This book will explain this journey, showing how two major political rivals moved from constant fighting to a surprising moment of cooperation. 2. The Big Fight. Before their surprising meeting, President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani were strong enemies. For many months, there was a big political fight. This intense warfare happened before the New York City mayoral election on November 4, 2025. President Trump often attacked Mamdani very strongly. He called Mamdani a communist and a 100% communist lunatic. Mamdani, however, said he was a democratic socialist, like Senator Bernie Sanders. Trump knew that calling someone a communist often makes many people unhappy, especially in American politics. He used these words to try and turn voters away from Mamdani. President Trump also made serious threats. He said he might send the National Guard to New York City if Mamdani became mayor. He also threatened to stop most federal money for New York, stating publicly he would give the city the very minimum as required. Trump's words suggested serious actions. He even said Mamdani, who was born in Uganda and became a U.S. citizen, might be here illegally. Trump claimed, "We're going to be watching that very carefully." To try and stop Mamdani, President Trump supported another candidate, Andrew Cuomo, just before the election. But Zoran Mamdani did not back down. He spoke against President Trump many times during his campaign. On election night, November 4, 2025, Mamdani gave his victory speech. He spoke directly to the president. Mamdani declared, "If anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that birthed him." He also had a direct message for Trump. "Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, here are 4 words for you. Turn the volume up." Mamdani added, "To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us." He won the election with more than 50% of the votes. This intense fighting made many people worry. They feared that the relationship between New York City and Washington would completely break down. The strong words and threats from both sides showed how deep their political differences were, raising concerns about future cooperation. 3. Meeting in the office. On Friday, November 21, the day of the important meeting arrived. Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani went to the White House to meet President Donald Trump. Their talk began with a private discussion in the Oval Office. It lasted for just over 30 minutes. During this time, they spoke about important issues for New York City. They talked about how to make housing cheaper for families and how to lower the cost of food and electricity. They also discussed keeping the city safe for everyone. These were key topics for both leaders. During their private talk, a special moment happened in the cabinet room. They looked at a large picture of a past president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Mamdani even took a photo of himself standing next to it. This moment, with Mamdani next to the image of the famous New Deal president, was seen by some as meaningful. After their private meeting, President Trump and Mayor-elect Mamdani met with many reporters for a public press conference. Many people expected them to argue or be unfriendly, but the tone was very different. President Trump spoke about Mamdani with surprising kindness. He said Mamdani was very rational and that they had found they agreed on much more than he had thought. Trump even said Mamdani had won an incredible race to become mayor. Reporters asked many hard questions. One reporter asked if President Trump would feel comfortable living in New York City with Mamdani as mayor. Trump gave a surprising answer, saying, "I truly would, especially after our meeting, absolutely." This showed a big change in his opinion. President Trump also helped Mamdani when reporters asked challenging questions. When a conservative reporter asked Mamdani about past negative words he had used against Trump, President Trump made a joke. He laughed and said he had been called much worse than a despot, helping Mamdani avoid a difficult answer. Later, when a reporter asked if Mamdani still saw Trump as a fascist, Trump put his arm around Mamdani's shoulder. He playfully told Mamdani it was easier to just say yes, defending his opponent. When another reporter questioned Mamdani about flying to Washington instead of using a less polluting method, Trump quickly supported Mamdani's choice. This visual of President Trump physically supporting Mamdani against aggressive reporters was very unusual and showed a new kind of respect between them. 4. A big surprise. The meeting between President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani was very different from what many people thought it would be. Trump's warm reaction to Mamdani was not planned. He had not thought much about how the meeting would go. This means his positive feelings were real and came from their talk, not from a political plan. When they met in person, Trump found Mamdani to be a likable and smart man. Mamdani was good at explaining his ideas. This first impression changed how President Trump saw him. Before the meeting, Trump had ideas about Mamdani that came from negative news stories and other politicians. He thought Mamdani was not very capable. But meeting him changed that view. One former city councilman even said that Trump would be surprised by how nice Mamdani could be. This proved to be true. Mamdani also might have thought that President Trump would not be open to working with him. But Trump showed he was willing to put aside their past disagreements for the good of the city. Both men had underestimated each other. President Trump deeply respects people who win. Mamdani's victory in the mayoral election was very impressive, as he won with more than 50% of the vote. Trump saw this as a sign of Mamdani's true political talent. It was also surprising that about 10% of people who voted for Trump in the last presidential election also voted for Mamdani. This cross-party support impressed President Trump. There was another connection between them. Both men are from New York. They both started as underdogs in their elections, meaning many people thought they would lose. They both won by using new ways to talk to voters and by having strong messages. They both had many supporters. President Trump often likes people who win against the odds, so Mamdani's story was appealing to him. During their meeting, Mamdani showed President Trump that he was not the negative image that the media had created. He proved he was a thoughtful person ready to solve problems. This broke through Trump's old ideas about him. Everyone was surprised by the positive chemistry between the two men. Trump even protected Mamdani from hard questions from reporters, showing a clear, good feeling between them. At that moment, President Trump did not seem to have any bad feelings toward Mamdani. 5. Money and houses. During their meeting, President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Mamdani found something surprising. They discovered common ground on important economic issues. Many people thought these two leaders would never agree, but they talked about problems that affected everyday New Yorkers and all Americans. One big issue they both cared deeply about was housing. Homes in New York City are very expensive, making it hard for many families to find a place to live. Both men knew this was a serious problem. They also discussed the high cost of living. Things like food, electricity, and water bills were too high for many, leading to what some called a crisis of affordability. This meant people struggled to pay for basic needs. It might seem strange that a capitalist like President Donald Trump and a democratic socialist like Mamdani would agree so much. However, the worry about money was a strong feeling for many voters in both their camps. Both leaders understood that ordinary people needed help with these growing costs. They had both gained political power by promising to make life better and more affordable for regular citizens. This shared need to help people with economic challenges brought them closer. Economic anxiety, or the worry about having enough money, truly bridged the gap between their different political ideas. President Donald Trump had promised to lower prices for everyone during his election campaign. Mayor-elect Mamdani's victory was also centered on making housing cheaper and daily life more affordable for those in New York. Their political success and their ability to stay popular depended on solving these real-world problems. They both needed to show results to the people who voted for them. So, instead of repeating earlier threats of cutting federal money for New York City, their conversation shifted. They moved past old arguments and focused on finding practical solutions. They began to discuss how they could work together to make housing more available and cheaper for everyone. They looked for specific ways to lower the cost of living for families across the city. This shift from fighting to finding answers was a very big step. It showed that even leaders with very different ideas could work together when people's daily lives and wallets were at stake. They knew they had to deliver for New Yorkers and Americans facing these economic worries. Finding cooperation between the federal and city governments to build more homes and help people save their hard-earned money. 6. Good for business. The meeting between President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani helped both men in important ways. It was good for their political goals. For President Trump, this meeting was a smart move to change the news. Before November 21, 2025, the media talked a lot about negative stories. For example, there were many reports about documents linked to the late Jeffrey Epstein. By holding a public meeting with Mamdani and getting good news stories, President Trump could make people look at other things. He could show himself as a strong president, open to new ideas, and willing to work with anyone, even a political opponent. This made him seem more presidential and ready to work with different leaders. Mayor-elect Mamdani also benefited greatly from the meeting. He needed support from the federal government for New York City. Before their talk, President Trump had said he might stop federal money to New York. He even suggested sending the National Guard. Mamdani showed he was a good leader who could get things done. He focused on issues like cheaper housing and improving city life. This helped convince President Trump that working together was better than fighting. President Trump later said that he did not think federal money would be cut. This was a major success for Mamdani, securing important federal cooperation. This positive meeting showed that Mamdani was a practical leader, ready to work with people who had different ideas. This helped him gain trust among New Yorkers who might have been unsure about him. It proved he could govern effectively for all citizens. Their good feelings during the meeting were not a sign of deep friendship. It was more like a political deal, a transactional alliance. This means they worked together because it helped each of them reach their goals, not because they had become close personal friends. The kind words and smiles were important for public image, but they did not mean a permanent peace treaty. Their different political beliefs did not disappear. The alliance was useful at that time, showing that both leaders could be pragmatic. But the real test would come later, when actual policies might clash again. 7. What the news said. The news channels and newspapers across the country were filled with stories after the meeting. Everyone was very surprised by what happened at the White House. Many headlines used the word bromance. This term described a very strong, friendly bond between two men. For instance, the Los Angeles Times wrote, "Trump and Mamdani go from adversaries to bromance." Other news outlets called them unlikely allies or spoke of a détente. The general message was that these two former enemies had become friends. Reporters paid close attention to how President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Mamdani acted. They noticed the friendly body language. President Trump put his arm around Mayor-elect Mamdani. He gave him a playful pat on the arm. They also shared jokes. When a journalist asked Mamdani if he still saw Trump as a fascist, President Trump quickly spoke up. He chuckled and said, "That's fine. You can just say yes. It's easier." This light-hearted moment was shown on TV and printed in papers everywhere. It made many people think their bad relationship had changed completely. However, some political experts believed the news was making the situation too simple. They thought that calling it a bromance might not be the full truth. They said it was more about smart politics and strategy than real deep friendship. Both President Trump and Mayor-elect Mamdani are experienced politicians. They understand how important it is to look good in front of the public and the cameras. President Trump probably wanted to appear open-minded and able to work with different people. This could help him politically. He also needed to move the news away from some less positive stories. Mayor-elect Mamdani needed to get federal support for New York City. He also wanted to show New Yorkers that he could be a practical leader. So, their warm public actions were a kind of performance that helped both men reach their goals. The reactions from other politicians were mixed. Many Republicans felt confused by President Trump's sudden friendliness. They had often criticized Mamdani based on Trump's earlier words. Now Trump was praising him. Democrats, on the other hand, felt relieved. They were happy to see cooperation instead of conflict between Washington and New York. The media frenzy highlighted a complex political situation that was more than just a simple story of friendship. 8. Friends or not. The meeting between President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani left many people wondering, are they truly friends now? In politics, friendship is often different from personal bonds. True friends share deep trust and care. But in high-stakes politics, relationships are more about strategy and achieving goals. Their meeting felt warm, and they both spoke kindly. They found common ground on helping New Yorkers with issues like housing and the cost of living. These were important topics for both men. However, this friendly meeting was likely a strategic partnership, not a deep personal bond. Each leader gained something. President Trump showed he could work across party lines, which helped his public image. Mayor-elect Mamdani secured federal support for New York City, stopping earlier threats of funding cuts. This helped him prepare for his new role. Their core political ideas, however, remain very different. Mamdani is a democratic socialist, and President Trump is a conservative Republican. These fundamental differences did not disappear after one meeting. When Mamdani starts his work as mayor, some of his policies might clash with President Trump's beliefs, for example, on spending or immigration. If these disagreements arise, the current warm feelings could easily change back to conflict. President Trump still holds significant power and could use it to oppose Mamdani's initiatives. Still, their meeting highlighted something hopeful. Even when politics is very divided, direct talks can make a difference. When leaders from opposing sides meet, they might find shared interests. They can see each other as people, not just as enemies. This face-to-face engagement can help break down strong disagreements and open doors for practical cooperation. So, will this partnership last, or will they become enemies again once the current good feelings pass? The future is uncertain. Their cooperation is based on shared needs right now. If those needs change, or if their different beliefs cause big problems, their alliance could end. The real test will be when tough decisions must be made and their core political ideas conflict. For now, they have found a way to work together, even if it is not a deep personal friendship.
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.